Hello and welcome to Microsoft Excel 2013, part of the Office 365 suite of products. Today we're going to be talking about the basics of Microsoft Excel, where we're going to find out what the screen looks like, what the elements are, how we can enter some data, do some basic formulas, and otherwise just get an introduction to what Excel can do for us. And where we're going to start by taking a look at the screen itself. So what is Microsoft Excel? Well, what I've done is I've gone ahead and pulled up Microsoft Excel here, and I want to cover the screen elements. If you're familiar with any of the other Office products from 2013, whether it's Word or PowerPoint, some of these elements are going to seem very familiar because Microsoft has really tried to make the interface consistent across all of its products. But specifically for Excel, I'm going to start by taking a look at the upper left-hand corner. And this is what's called the Quick Launch Toolbar. And what the Quick Launch Toolbar is designed to do is to do exactly that, give you quick access to a couple of different tools that you may need. So you can see at this point we've got the Save icon, which is to save it. We've got the Undo and the Redo button. Later on in the intermediate course, we're going to find out how you can adjust those. And if you have a tool that you use a lot, you can actually put it on that Quick Launch Toolbar and have quick access to it. Now just below, before we leave that, let's take a look right here in the center. And that's my title. You'll notice that right now I'm in Book 1, Excel. Excel uses a book analogy. The workbook that we're working in is called Book Number 1, meaning it's the first book. If you've taken Word course, you know the first one is Document 1. If you're in PowerPoint, it's Presentation 1. Excel, it's a book, that's my title. As soon as I save it, that will change to whatever my file name is. All right, so below that first level, we get to what's called the ribbon. And the ribbon is really a series of tabbed interfaces that give me all the tools that I need to interact with Excel. Each one is organized so that the tab, of course, is at the top, and then we have groupings of tools. So what I want to do is walk through each of the tabs and the groupings, kind of give you a brief introduction to what each one will do. Well, the Home tab is where you're going to spend the majority of your time, and that's because that's where all of your formatting and insert and just general functions are going to be. If we start at the left, we'll notice that the first grouping that I have is called Clipboard, title being down here at the bottom. That's where I'm going to find cut, copy, paste, where I can actually remove pieces or data from one area, move it to another, or potentially from one sheet to another, or even from one workbook to another. That's where that functionality comes in. The next area is the font grouping, and this is how I can change the attributes of fonts or letters that are on my page. We're going to see that there's two different ways that I can update numbers. I can do the font attributes that you see here, or we can actually apply number styles to them as well. We'll kind of talk about what the difference is moving on. But if you've used Word or if you've used PowerPoint before, those should be very familiar to you, and we'll go over those tools as well. The next one is my alignment. Now, the alignment is just like paragraph alignment in Word or text alignment in PowerPoint, in that it's how the actual letters are going to move or fit left, right, center, or be organized within the individual cells of the Excel spreadsheet. But there's a couple more here that we're going to get involved with, but they're very specific to Excel, and that's the word wrap and the merge and center. We'll talk about what those are when we go through the application today. The next area is that number formatting I was talking about. Because Excel is focused on numbers, and numbers can be displayed in a lot of different ways, we need a way to be able to say this is a percentage, this is dollars, this is a date. Because to Excel, it's all numbers. But to we humans who have to look at it, it's really a good idea to give us some clues as to what kind of data we're looking at. The next area is styles. And styles are ways that information can be adjusted to look. And it's kind of a grouping between alignment and font and background colors and a lot of elements that are there. We're going to talk about this as well. The next one is cells. This is where I can insert, remove, add, delete cells, rows, and columns. We're going to talk about what a row is, what a column is, and what the cell analogy is as we go through this. Then we have some basic editing functions. Now in the editing functions, we have some formulas, we have some functionality from find and replace, we also have clears and fills, and this is kind of a grouping of things that we can do to the sheet that Microsoft decided, you know what, they're going to use these a bit, I don't know what to call them, I'm going to call them editing, and they put them on the Home tab. Well, when I switch to the Insert tab, this is where we start talking about the objects or things that I can insert into my Excel spreadsheet. We can do what are called pivot tables. Pivot tables, if you're not familiar with that term, is really just a way to dynamically display a large amount of data. If you think about transactional records, we've got 1,000 records, and you want to kind of slice them and dice them, that's what a pivot report does, or what a pivot table does. You've heard the term slice and dice the data. That's what a pivot table will do. That's one of the ways you can do that. The next one, of course, are illustrations. In Excel, you can add images, you can add shapes, you can do more than just put numbers on a page. We'll go through and talk about some of the ways you can do that. Any Microsoft product is really just limiting you from your imagination. There's not a limit to what you can do a lot of times. It's just what can you do with the tools that you're given. We've got the ability to add applications, and then one of the big ones that we have here is charts. Anytime you start talking about numbers, you get to this list of numbers, and you look at it and you go, oh wow, I have no idea what that means. You ever looked at your checkbook? What does it mean? Where are you spending your money? You can't figure it out as easily by just looking at a list of numbers. Well, what charts do is they give you an opportunity to take those numbers and display them in a graphic format. In the intermediate course, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about charts and the way you can organize the charts and the data that gets put in there and the elements that you can add. So just know that the chart function is something you can add based on the data that you have there. Then you have a different called spark lines. We'll talk about those. Filters, ways that I can filter the data. You can actually use this in combination with the chart so that as you're looking at a chart, you can choose what you want to see in that chart and kind of compare one to the other. Again, we'll talk about that as we move forward. We can insert hyperlinks, we can insert text, and we've got some basic equations and symbol text that are there. The next one is page layout. And page layout, just like it is in any other Microsoft product, is how is the page organized? What are the elements that I can adjust? Now we do have themes, and themes are collections of defaults for colors and font styles and shape characteristics. There are some default themes that are associated with Excel, and you can go in and change those if you need to. Themes are consistent, again, across all Microsoft products. But here's where the page setup takes place. You know, what are my margins? When I print this document, what are my area that's not going to be printed? How do I want the pages arranged? This is much more important with Excel than it is typically with Word or with PowerPoint. Reason being, when you take a list of documents or take a list of numbers, it may not fit widthwise, but you can turn it and kind of make a flip book out of it, and it gives you a lot more ways you can take a look at that data and still have it on one page instead of spreading it across multiple pages. We can talk about the size of the page. We can talk about the print area. With Excel, you can actually specify, I want just this area to print. Maybe it's the chart, maybe it's just the summaries, maybe it's the full data. You get to decide what's there. You can adjust the page breaks, you can talk about backgrounds to the entire sheet, and you can even choose what titles you want to print. I about jumped ahead of myself here. But print titles is actually a pretty cool thing. Have you ever gotten a list of numbers from the top and it goes over multiple pages, and you look at the column headings on the first page, and you get to the second page, and there's no column headings? So as you're going through the second page, you got to refer back to the first page to see what column you're looking at. Yeah, well, print titles is a way to adjust that. The next one is scaling, and how do we look at the information? Do I want to scale everything to one page? What scaling means is I know it's going to not fit on one page, but when I print it, I want it to actually shrink so that it fits on one page, so I don't end up with 2 pages wide or 2 pages down. The next one is, what do I want to show when I'm viewing it or when I'm printing it from a grid line and a heading perspective? We'll come back and talk about that as we start entering data in and see what the differences are. And then we have our arrange. When we start putting objects, whether it's an image or a graphic or a shape, we can align them, we can layer them one on top of the other, we can say what's in front of what, and all those tools are associated with the Arrange tab on the ribbon toolbar. The next one over is really the heart and soul of any spreadsheet, and that's my formulas. Formulas are functions. They're different. Everybody uses the term, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people use the term formulas and functions as meaning the same thing. And kinda they are. But typically a formula is based on numbers. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, square, square root, all those things. Whereas a function may involve logic, it may involve lookups, it may involve comparisons. So Excel can handle both. So it's on the Formulas tab, but you can insert a function. How confusing can Microsoft make it? Really, when we talk about it, we're going to consider them interchangeable, but just know that formulas typically are for numbers and functions are typically for more of the logic-based or text-based lookups. Now what they've done here is they've given you a function library. They've given you the opportunity to go in and see what all of the functions that are available within Excel are. And you can click on any one of these and see the list and see a description. And we'll come back and talk about that. Again, we're just kind of going over the ribbon and showing you what's there. The next area here is what's called defined names. We're going to see that in Excel, I give every individual rectangle on this sheet of paper a name. But what I can also do is I can take a series or a collection of those and I can give that a name. So instead of saying from here to here every time, I can go that. I can call it something and then I can refer to that name as it's called a named range. The next area is auditing of formulas. If you're working with a complex formula and you don't know why it's not working, these are the tools that you can use to start to analyze what information is not there, what information is wrong, did I get the formula wrong, did I reference the wrong cell, and those tools give you the ability to do that. Along with the watch window and then calculations. By default, Excel is going to calculate the sheet, redo everything whenever you exit a cell. Whenever you say, I'm done with that cell and move to the next one, it recalculates. Well, that's great if you only have 100 pages. But Excel can have hundreds and thousands of pages. So maybe you want to turn that automatic calculation off because you've got a whole bunch of stuff running. You don't want to slow it down. What you can do is turn that off and then come back in here and go ahead and manually cause that calculation to take place.